completely different.
Happy Hour. Happy Hour.
What's up? This is Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, and I'm very excited about my next guest. On the phone line is Atlanta radio legend Southside Steve. He is on the show. What's up, bro?
Nothing much, man. Just enjoying a cocktail and doing a hurricane show with you.
Yes, sir. What is the weather like in Georgia? Right now, it's kind of calm here in Tampa Bay, but it's going to keep raining in a little bit.
Yeah, we're just getting the rain right now. They're expecting us to get the really bad winds from about midnight to 4 a.m. Where damage can be done. They think the winds will be around 80, 85 miles an hour. So I've taken the umbrella off the deck. Everything's battened down, and I'm just going to drink some Come On bourbon whiskey and talk to you.
Yeah, I've always wanted to ask you, where did Come On come from?
It's a phrase that I started saying when I worked for the airlines. I worked for Atlantic Southeast Airlines, which was the commuter for Delta, and we were at Hartsfield, which is now Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, and we were on D concourse. So whenever you were taking a flight to a smaller city like Fort Walton Beach, Panama City, Dothan, Alabama, Roanoke, Virginia, you'd fly on one of our prop aircrafts rather than being on a jet for smaller runways. So we had 42 cities that we flew to, and I was a ramp lead, so it was my job to guide either a Dash 7 or a Shorts 360 or a Bandit or our turboprop that was a Brazilian aircraft around the ramp and situate them to where we could board them from the concourse. So they'd have to walk across the ramp, not use a jetway. And I would guide the plane out, and I would talk on the radio, and I'd say something like, Ramp 2, Gate 2, Aircraft 242, clear for Fort Walton Beach, bring Panama City, Aircraft 231 out of Gate 28. Yeah, come out. And I used to say, yeah, come on all the time. And then I get to radio years later. I'm on the air on our morning show on 96 Rock, our Heritage Rock station, with Christopher Rood and the Wake Up Crew, and our sports guy, Jeff Hullinger, who was on Channel 5. He was, just joking around, and they had watched a porn, I guess about a week before I had started on the show. And in the porn before, because Chris is kind of a pervert, so he was always showing Hullinger stuff he didn't want to see to make him uncomfortable. And they were looking at it, and the guy's going, oh, yeah, you know what I like. Oh, yeah, come on.
Yeah.
That's it. Do it. So Jeff would imitate that. And he would say, oh, you know what I like. Oh, you know what I want. Yeah, come on. But every time he said, yeah, come on, it just grated on my nerves. I'm like, whoa, that's my phrase. So I kind of peed on it and said, hey, dude, just letting you know from radio, this is what I said. And I said it all the time. I hope you're okay, but that's kind of like my little saying. And he goes, oh, dude, it's yours. So when I got ready to trademark it, I literally called him and sent him an email and had him say, yes, it's okay, and sign it. That yeah, come on was truly mine, because everybody in Atlanta likes to joke that Hullinger started saying it first. But it was me, and I trademarked it about 23 years ago. So now it's mine. So anything I do, I put yeah, come on it.
How often, when you're out and about, do you get recognized in Atlanta?
Pretty much always. And that's one reason I haven't cut my hair. I'm blessed to have a full head of hair. It's grayer than I want it to be now, so I get it colored about every 7 weeks. And I throw some highlights in it. I don't care. I'm very in touch, which is one reason why I think I dated a lot. I got a little chick side of me where I understand women, and also I'm just not one of those guys that's rough and gruff and thinks you got to wear a football jersey into a bar to watch a football game. I just kind of do it a little different. My approach is different, and the way I handle myself is different, I guess. So I wouldn't call it a feminine quality. I would just say I'm in touch with my feminine side, and I love the long hair. And that's why I get recognized, because it's always, usually in a ponytail, and people notice that. And I was at, I guess, the Georgia Dome, and we were doing monster trucks, and I came out, and I would always, go on the dirt in front of people, or, do the stadium stuff, or introduce, stadium. I got to introduce Metallica, at Truist Field. you get in front of 50 and 60,000 people enough, you kind of get recognized. And I was fortunate in this major market to do that. But the guy goes, when he introduced me, he goes, man, this little stadium just blew up. He goes, who are you? And I said, I'm nobody. I said, I'm just a dude on the radio. I said, but I've averaged 4 promotions a year out at bars, venues for probably 15, 16 years. And I said, either I've met them or I was cool to a friend of theirs, and their friend told them I was cool, and that's why they're clapping. I said, I've just touched probably half of these people. I said, it's not that I'm on TV or at that time even on social media. It was just being out and being cool. And you can't have an off day. You know that in radio. If you're ever rude to somebody or you're a jerk, then they tell people. They'll tell 20 people you're an idiot, but if you're nice, they might tell 1 or 2. But radio is the lowest rung. I always have heard that, and I'm okay with that. I've been fortunate enough to be on TV and do a lot of different things, headline news 7 or 8 times. But for me, I just love it because it gets our personality out there. You can be a stand-up comedian. You can play a role. You can be different from who you are, or you can be exactly who you are. And it's learning how to talk on the radio versus how you would talk at a party. And for me, it just fit me, and I just love people. So I want to believe I've never really been a jerk to anybody that didn't deserve it.
So I found the regular guys probably in 2008. When I was in middle school and high school, I would Google radio shows. And back then I had a really bad speech impediment where I had a hard time getting words out. And I used to listen to you guys, and I used to listen to the way that Larry and Eric would talk, and you as well, and how clear you guys talked. And I used to kind of like emulate Larry a little bit because I used to go, man, that guy is such a good talker. And The Regular Guys is one of my favorite radio shows of all time. But I know there's also a lot of controversy that surrounds that show. Whenever you Google it, people either loved it or people despised The Regular Guys. During your long run working on TRG, when you look back on it, what do you think about your time with The Regular Guys?
It made me 100%. Larry had a mean streak, and he just thought that 90s style radio was beat up on somebody on the show. You pick a target, whether it's a producer or third mic guy, fourth mic, and you just mess with them. And, you just kind of also go after your guests sometimes, and he upset a lot of people. He's a bridge burner. Some of it by design, and some of it comes natural. Whereas Eric, when he first got there, was very similar. Their show in L.A., these are 2 guys that worked together in upstate, New Jersey or wherever the hell they were. And, basically Larry was so difficult. Eric was a stand-up comedian that wasn't very funny. He came through Georgia a couple times, and these are his words, not mine. But Larry came and saw him and thought he was peculiar enough that he could help write some bits. Larry didn't want to put him on the air. And he's using Eric, then realized Eric, could talk, but he said he sounded like a sock throat, like he had a sock in his throat. So he never really, to this day, I think, liked the way Eric sounded, but he learned that he would be a good foil. And then they got intense together, and then basically Larry got fired, and management liked Eric so much they let him be the show host. It lasts about a year, and then it's over. Larry's out of work. Eric's working at Blockbuster. Larry starts sending tapes out, but Eric was on them, the demo tapes. And all of a sudden they got a bite in Los Angeles, and they wanted them both. So, of course, when Larry got out there, he's making more, but after the first year they were making the same, and they did Los Angeles for 2 years. And even though Eric despised him, it was a meal ticket. It's better than Blockbuster. So they go out there. So when they get fired in L.A., they're out of work for 6 months. They're very good friends with Jimmy Kimmel and Adam Carolla. And then Opie and Anthony show up in Atlanta because they've blown up our morning show, put John Boy and Billy on.
Oh, God.
They kept me because I was very good at promotions and I was cheap, and I ran the board and localized the show. So when Larry and Eric got there, they had a producer. So they said, yeah, we'll keep you. You're local. You're cool. And that's how the Regular Guys started in Atlanta in 98. We go to the Super Bowl. we're hanging out with Jimmy and Adam. They haven't blown up yet. I go in, I'm hanging out with Kim all week and Adam and Kevin and Bean from K-Rock, and it's because they were all friends. And they're at the Super Bowl too. Ben Stein was there, and Jimmy was doing Win Ben Stein's Money. And, you could see there was a lot of potential. And that's where I met all those guys. But, they missed L.A. So when they hit Atlanta, they were off the hook. I mean, it was intense anger radio, and we'd never done anything like that on 96 Rock. And it became their style. And working with them, they just never got along. Truth be told, Eric and never liked Larry. It got to the point before it was over, he wouldn't even come in the studio until 5 seconds before we went on air. And he didn't want to talk to him off air. It got to the point that, Larry and I got into it. Larry just had to go after somebody, and I wasn't going to take it. And he picked on me for a while, and I took it because I saw him as superior. I understood I needed thick skin. But then I realized, no, he's meaner off air than he is even on air. This guy's a jerk. So we had a reality show land in our lap. That blew up because nobody could get along. We had potential to be syndicated, but everybody saw how bad it was, and it all started at the top, and that would be with Larry. And we all showed up at Eric's 60th birthday party.
How was that?
Yeah, pretty awesome. But it's the first time we've been together since 2013, all four of us.
Yeah.
And everybody's gotten a little wiser, a little older, a little mature. But had we gotten along, and the three of us did, Eric would have a bad day every once in a while. Tim Andrews is more talented at being other people than himself. I think he'll even admit that he's great with voices. And then we had Seabass, who's working on the Woody Show on the West Coast now. Yeah, and we had a collection. There was a lot of talent. And let me tell you, if you weren't totally on, if you weren't sharp or didn't know how to play it off when you had a bad day or you couldn't think quick, you just wouldn't survive in that room. So just doing, 98 to 2004 with them was like huge, just surviving. And then the show got fired the first time. I ended up doing afternoons with a guy named Tim Rhodes, and they run a syndicated show in the morning because they didn't want everybody hating me like I'm the only one left. And we had a blast in the afternoons, man. I was partying at night, doing my 4 gigs a week, waking up at noon and coming in and winging the show. And we did some crazy stuff, probably some of the best radio in 2005. And we were the morning show. So we got all the trips, all the fun, all the cruises, everything that the morning show would have gotten, we got. And it was just a great time. And then they blew up 96 Rock, and regular guys started again in 08. They asked me back. I didn't want to do it. Management called, said, we're not going to let this crazy crap go on. And it was perfect for about 3 years. And then the crazy crap started again. Eric had enough, got out. And then it was between Larry and I who would survive. I survived. Larry got fired. And then we started another show called Bailey and Southside. But for TRG, to answer really directly your question, that was the most intense show. Very Opie and Anthony-esque. Larry stole some bits that Eric and I weren't aware of. I'm not a radio guy. Neither is Eric. I don't listen to other shows. I don't want to steal anybody's material. I do me. But Larry stole a lot of their stuff unbeknownst to us, and we were kind of embarrassed, Wolf Ball Bat Challenge, some of the homeless bits. Obviously, we had girls jump on trampolines from the Man Show. He took other things and put our spin on it. I had a couple bits I came up with, like in my stall, where I go in the bathroom and talk to strangers, and then talking to homeless people, homeless karaoke, and some of the things we did with the homeless population in Atlanta. And I wasn't a jerk to them. I gave them clothes, blankets. I'd go out there. They all knew me by name, and I could walk to the park because I lived downtown about 3 blocks from CNN in the stadium. And I lived there for 15 years in a really nice loft and had a rental property loft there as well. So I was a downtowner. So I could go out my front door and interview a homeless person. But, we just did bits that were so original as well. It's the best radio I've ever done for sure on a morning show. And I've never had a comfortable day doing it. There was only one good day a year with the regular guys where we all got along. And that was the last show we did where we gave each other Christmas gifts. It is the only day I ever look forward going into work. And that's probably about the saddest thing I can say about that show.
I have very similar experiences when I worked for the Mike Calta show and then Rover's Morning Glory in Cleveland. Rover, I never had a good day there. I was only there for 3 months. I got fired because I got blackout drunk on St. Patrick's Day and was like smoking weed in front of the bosses. And this was before it was cool and I was 21. And, but it was the best thing to happen to me because it got me from Cleveland to Tampa. And then me and Mike Calta worked for about 7 years together on and off. And we don't talk anymore and we're not really cool. But what's really crazy about those morning radio egos, and tell me if you ever had to deal with this. And I don't want to like talk bad about Larry. This can be about any show you've ever worked with. But did you ever have it? Did you ever? You're talking
about the moment in time. You're not talking about the individual now. But he's guilty as charged. I have no problem. I've had him. No, yeah. You can say it. It's fine.
No, but what I'm saying is, so picture this. Did you ever have a day on the regular guys? Because I've had to deal with this in the past where it was very tough. It was very bitter. It was very negative, but it made for good radio and everybody loves it on social media. Everybody calls in and then you get a text at like 1 or 2 in the afternoon and the text will say something like, oh, well, just know it was all jokes. You know that, right? Did you ever get that stuff?
No. Larry never did that, nor did Eric. They weren't going to take the time, first off, to text unless they wanted you to do a bit or do something or had a question or had an angle.
Yeah.
There was none of that kind of stuff. That was probably one of the problems I hear, and I've probably listened total, and I'm not trying to take a shot at him. I've probably listened to maybe 2 hours total of Howard Stern on the radio, and that includes his movie. And I hear that he, and I've heard some of it where, he was just a jerk to be around, or if you work for him, he'd go after you. But I heard he was incredibly nice off air. So Larry would be a jerk on air and worse off air. He would let you know just by making the things he said that you were lucky to be with him, that the show's success was because of him, and you should kiss his ass. And it was just ridiculous. And, and I knew everybody in Atlanta and I had contacts and I'd already been doing radio, for a few years, but they taught me the art of being a professional. I would see those two in a huge argument. I mean, almost throwing blows. And literally when the mics go on, they were professional and you'd never know there was a problem, but they never apologized for it. And they never said it was just a bit because it was all real. Larry said on air, I'm going to get you to cry one day. I guess they had gotten their producer in LA to cry, and he was a surfer dude, just a cool stoner guy, I guess. And they made him cry on the air. He never got me to. He cried twice, like when he knew that I wasn't in on doing the reality show because I just didn't like the direction and how he was going to be in charge. And, he was wanting an incredible percentage of the profit. And I'm like, no, this isn't worth my time. This dude's going to ruin this. He literally called me in with the program director and literally started begging me and crying, real tears, begging me not to tube it because obviously the cat, the people that were looking at us loved me and wanted me to be a part of it. At the time I was dating, a lot of different people, some celebs, some cheerleaders, just whoever in town who would come in the studio. I was dating Kim Zolciak from Real Housewives of Atlanta, just doing things that would make the reality show really go. They needed a guy that was sleeping around and having fun and, decent looking dude. We don't all have faces for radio. And they were both, kind of nerdy and had wives and kids, and they needed that. And he started crying. And I said, look who's crying now. And then the day he got fired, they wanted to do a bit. And we were at the height. We were killing it. We were number 1, number 2 in the market. We were all hitting our bonuses, which was fantastic. And we were on top of it. And we didn't have great music, and we didn't play it because of that. We played no rock music. We were a talk show. We played nothing at 96 Rock. The music didn't start until 10 o'clock. And same thing on Rock 100.5. So being on a talk show and having to fill that much airtime, you think outside the box. Well, he wanted to do the nastiest bit ever and poke fun at the FCC. So what they wanted to do was bring in, a stripper. I mean, we had topless interns for 2 years. I mean, it was one of those kind of shows. So they have a stripper in the studio, and they're talking all this nasty stuff, and they're saying when we play this interview, they were going to play it backwards. So the FCC couldn't do anything about it. The nastiest interview ever played backwards on air.
I've read about this, yeah.
A competition, everybody was taping it because he told them to. He talked about this for 3 days. Well, there was a bleed through. One of the mics was hot, and some of the nastiest stuff you've ever heard went out over the top of a Honda commercial while they were in break. I heard it because I was already wanting to get off the show. I wanted to go to afternoons with Tim Rhodes. I was over it. So I was starting to phase myself out. The general manager goes, we can't lose him. The guy bills over $1 million. He's the lifeblood of the station. He's the face of the station. He does all the gigs in Atlanta, Buckhead, in town, outside the perimeter. So I had that hook, and I'm like, get me off this show. And the board op was running it instead of me. And he was listening, didn't hear the bleed through. I heard it in another studio because we were listening on air. And I'm like, did you just hear that? What's that talking? Oh, my God. So I go in there, and I'm like putting the brakes on it, and Larry shoots me a bird and says, get out of the room. He's just throwing his hand up, get out. And I don't listen to him. And I listen to the other guy go, listen, man, I think there's a bleed through. We can hear something going out over the air, but I can't make it out. Are you sure that, you're not doing so? And he looks at all the meters. And again, now Eric's standing up, get out. So I leave. I go down to the bathroom, and then all hell breaks loose. I hear people running because whatever it is, there was a moment in the commercial where there was a perfect gap where 3 words were said that should never be said on the radio. And it went out. They were fired within
What was it? This is a podcast. You can say it.
Well, yeah, they said, I know, you're right. So look at me. I'm always thinking I'm on the air.
Yeah,
I rarely, over the top of a Honda commercial, you hear, I want to put my cock in your fuckhole. In my life, I've never said that. I have never even said that. I don't even know where you got fuckhole and cock. It's like, okay. And that goes out over the air.
Oh my God.
And that was it. That's all it took. And my roommate was dating a girl that had the Honda commercial. She lost like $200,000 in billing. They canceled immediately. Other people canceled. They're fired. And the funny thing was, in the meeting the day before, I said, why are you even going to do the interview? I said, why do that? I said, only 2% of our audience is probably going to take this audio and reverse it to hear it. And I said, why don't you just make it a joke on them and just do like a nursery rhyme or something silly backwards? And you know what he told me?
What?
He goes, you're a pussy. And he goes, that's why you'll never make it, because you're a pussy. And that's what he says to me. So once they got fired, and he's in the office, you should have seen the look on his face. Tears in the eye. He's pale white. He's in shock. Eric is just angry. He's already punched the wall like twice, broken his headset, and it's chaos. And I just walked up to Larry, and he just kind of looked up at me with sad puppy dog eyes, thinking I was going to hug him or something. And all I did was lean in, and I go, who's the pussy now? And I walked out of the room.
Damn.
Which that was probably my lowest moment to say that, but he deserved it for the hell he had put me through and not listening and making a huge mistake that cost us our show. And, it changed my narrative. And, within a year and a half, they blew up the station, and they wanted to go with something different. They went with alternative. And the next thing you know, I'm doing country radio for a year until I returned to rock, where they were begging me back.
You know what's crazy is a lot of this sounds like Hoppe and Anthony radio. And Hoppe and Anthony, I'm a radio nerd. I loved Hoppe and Anthony growing up. And I've had a few moments in time where I've tried to have a co-host on Hoppe Hour. And my last co-host and I, we were doing pretty well. And now we don't talk to each other, and we hate each other. And we had a huge we had a huge blow up back in May. And I wish him the best. If he's listening, I wish you the best. But what's funny is everybody wants to be Hoppe and Anthony. The regular guys wanted to be Hoppe and Anthony. I kind of wanted to be like them. All these podcasts online want to be like Hoppe and Anthony. But nobody thinks about the fact that in the end, Opie and Anthony were both two bitter old people who yell in videos online talking to people and that they got fired and that they're no longer friends and that a lot of people hate them. And listen, this is coming from a huge Opie and Anthony fan. But the thing is, like, it's sort of like be careful what you wish for, because if you're trying to always be like somebody, and I've learned this because I was trying really hard to do like a millennial Opie and Anthony vibe, but when you do that type of really mean radio where you talk crap to each other, it can become a joke at first where it's funny, but then when you start making fun of each other and arguing over and over, it never works, ever.
No, and it does. And you're always pushing the envelope.
Yeah.
Where can I take it now? So what I've done, I've got a very blue career. I've done, I was the vehicle. I'm sitting here in my home studio looking at some of the pictures of the show. I'm looking at us with Chris Rock, me and John Travolta, where I think he did hit on me because he kissed me on the cheek twice and, called me 3 or 4 times. But who knows? But he was like my idol. I'm like, I'm not going to go he with it. I wouldn't hook up with him to be his buddy. But if he want to kiss me on the cheek, I don't give a crap. But, you look at some of these moments in the studios and the things that we did, and it was crazy. And I run into people in Atlanta. So many people have moved here. I don't know about Tampa, but after the Olympics, we just became, just like, damn. Just everybody and their mother moved here. And a lot of them have listened to some of that good radio you speak of, or that edgy radio. And, people here tell them that was us in Atlanta. And I still have an edge. I mean, I can't help it. It's where my mind is. But what I always tried to do is, if you meet me, just like I've met you at Morning Show Boot Camp, I'm very nice. I'm very caring. I don't have a mean bone in my body unless you're a dick. I don't care what color you are, what religion you are, as long as you're not trying to, blow something up. But what I do care about is, are you a dick or not? And if you are, then I don't have time for you. And, I put some of those people in their place. But most of the time, man, I'm 99% cool. I'm an Eagle Scout, come from a good family, nice guy. And, got a beautiful wife and 2 kids. But for me, when you meet me, you're like, people used to say, you're not as bad as you sound on the radio. I'm like, no, that's a vehicle. And I'm also put in that car by Larry and Eric because they can't do what I can do. People need to live vicariously through me. So there was no way a relationship was going to work. No matter who I dated, it was going to get ruined because of the way they would talk about her, or how hot she was, or what she liked in the bed. And then her parents hear it, and I'm kitchen hell. So every relationship.
I've been there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Sabotage. You end up, I didn't meet my wife. I met her in the studio with the regular guys, and Eric said, I'm addicted to strange. It would never work out, but we all were at the end, and I was mature enough to not let them ruin it. And we had fun with it. And I think at that time, Larry wanted me to be his co-host and wanted Eric off the show. And that's what happened. And then, of course, Larry turns on me and became a choice for management between the two of us. And they picked me. And now he's retired. Eric's doing talk radio on AM, doing news, which is what he wanted to do anyway. He didn't like the TNA stuff. He was like Mr. Brady on the Brady Bunch. He wanted to be a Shakespearean actor and probably hated doing the Brady Bunch. Eric wanted to do news and politics and hated doing the... I can
tell, because I think you know this, but when you guys went to that anniversary, or for Larry's birthday, somebody commented, I have every episode via podcast. So I messaged the guy, and the guy gave me his Google Drive that had every show from like 2008 to 2014. And when I was when I was bored during the summer, I'm the one that made the account that was uploading shows. But the problem was a lot of them aren't numbered, so I never know which one to put in order, because it's very easy to make a video. I do it in my free time. I get high and make videos. It's fine. It's because people are like, that's so much work. It's really not. But the problem is a lot of the shows are out of place whenever I put it up there. But I've been listening to a lot of it, and I'll listen to some of the news jogs, and I'm going through the 2010 year with the oil spill, with the BP oil spill, and you can definitely... I'm picking up on it because I know everybody. I know you and Larry. I don't really know Eric, but I'm picking up on because I'm really good at hearing things after the fact. Like I can listen to old Opie and Anthony and hear that they hate each other. What I was always hearing in June 2010, was that Eric wanted to do a more political show talking about Obama and the Tea Party and things like that and the BP oil spill. And then Larry wants to be more like a Howard Stern or Opie and Anthony. And you can sometimes in a way hear that collide where Eric will keep talking about something and then Larry will be again? Can really move on from this type of vibe? It's like little things I pick up on knowing things after the fact.
Yeah, you're spot on with that. And that's what it was. And Eric actually got himself fired. He started talking about, the Dickies and just saying things. And it was mainly, just trying to get himself fired. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And I said, at the end of the day, you're being paid well. You might want to respect these guys. It doesn't matter whether you agree with what they do, but he just didn't like Larry being in charge. He had gotten enough confidence that he was ready to do something on his own. And when he got fired, for 2 years, he employed 7 interns that had interned with us over 15 years, different ages, different backgrounds. And he brought them all together and kept putting them in the basement, and he was paying them to do it. And they did it. And he kept turning in the tapes. And what you hear right now from 3 to 7 on WSB is that group. It's those 3 and 4 interns. Those are all on his show. And he got them all a real radio job. And it worked, but he just kept trying to live that dream. And, when it came to other people on the show, like Tim Andrews, who did voices, or Seabass, who became the stunt guys, that didn't really fit me anymore. And I was more of a host. It was like the 3 of us. Then it was just really Larry and I. And, it was fun. I mean, there's no doubt that show. And I will say this about Larry. He's fantastic air personality. You're right. The way his mind works, his voice, what he can see, he's a great setup guy. He's a great host, period, in the story. The problem is he's got demons, and they overtake him, and he just can't fight them off. And I think he's realized that.
Now, about 4 years
kind
ago,
of like Fred Dutcher too. Fred, there's a lot of guys that came out of Atlanta that I know too well, and I'm just like, they've been so successful. But I do think that those moments in time. But the regular guys made me. Christopher Root and the Wake Up Crew is what gave me my name, Southside, because I told the story of how my cousins teased me about living on the South Side because they were all uppity, Dunwoody kids. And for those of you that don't know Georgia, that's where everybody played tennis and popped their collar and drove a BMW. And I come from the side of town where we all had above ground pools and put big tires on our parents' cars. So it was just and teasing. So I look back at the shows that formed me, but the Opie and Anthony thing, what's crazy is they interviewed, and they almost took the Atlanta gig, and I would have been working with them. Instead, they took the New York gig, and Larry and Eric were second choice out of LA, and I ended up with them. So you kind of look at what went down and what could have been, but there's no doubt that was a dirty show. But I think in Atlanta history, it is the most polarizing show. It is going to go down as probably the #1 morning show in Atlanta radio history.
So 4 years ago, during the beginning of COVID, probably April, May, or June 2020, I was on the Nextdoor app because I was very bored and I just wanted to talk to people. And there was a lot of people talking about things. And there was this one cute girl. She was in her 40s. She had short blonde hair. I went to her house one time. Nothing really happened. She made dinner, and then we watched the movie Die Hard, the latest one. Or no, it was Death Wish with Bruce Willis. Just the weirdest date ever during COVID or whatnot. And she goes, "Oh, so what do you do for a living?" I'm like, "Oh, I work in radio. I work here." And she's like, "Oh yeah, I went on a date with a radio DJ. He had this ponytail and he lived in Atlanta." And I'm like, "Is it Southside Steve?" And she's like, "Yeah, he took me to the opening of the movie Braveheart in the 90s. Do you have any memory of that?"
I do. I can't think who it is, because these things go down. People don't realize, we are the lowest rung of show business. So my confidence, you have to have confidence to do what we do. And you're a very confident person, from meeting you, and you have to have an outward personality.
Oh yeah.
Or have such a dark side that somebody with that type of personality can pull that out of you and people find entertainment in it.
Mm-hmm.
But no doubt the confidence level. So, we're fortunate where we do have it is we get to be ourselves or have a personality, whereas people in news media can't. Even in film, you can't, because you're playing a role. Just like Kevin Costner can be, Field of Dreams. Then the next thing he's killing Indians in another movie. He's in a Western. You can kill people, you can go to jail, you can get killed. But in our business, it's like you're stuck in the same role every damn day. And it just becomes legendary. People buy into it. They buy into your personality. And you have to appreciate that and understand it. But my point is, in our market, there were so many things. So I'm going from $3 Cafe in Buckhead, which is where all the cool people went, and I'm doing a promotion there on the Monday Night Football on the deck and having fun. And then I'm at a strip club on Wednesday, and then Thursday, I'm doing something for Budweiser at the stadium, and then Friday I get movie tickets to go to this. So you're meeting people out. You meet a hot girl, whatever, and you invite her to these things. What you're doing, and you might go on a couple of dates. Of course, usually have sex, and then you move on.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, and this girl there's definitely, I remember the night, and I remember taking her girl, but I can't remember who it was.
She was blonde, and she had I don't know what she looked like then, but she had kind of that short, kind of long version of Karen hair. Like the Karen haircut, but it's longer where it kind of goes down to the shoulder. She kind of had, it was almost like army brat hair or something.
Oh my God. I wonder if she had changed it. Did she have big breasts or small?
Big. From what nothing ever happened. It was a very weird date, and she remembered. Okay. She remembered you.
So we're talking about, I went on a date with this girl in 97, and you went on a date with her in 2020?
Yeah, so about 23 years after.
God. Oh, hell. All right, I'm going to rack my brain. If I ever figure it out, I'm going to tell you, and I'll go back and look through some photos. There's always somebody taking pictures. Problem is then they're either on a, God, what phone were we using then? A BlackBerry?
Yeah.
Or it's just a Kodak. But yeah, I don't know. That's cool as hell. And she relocated to Florida. That's
something
funny.
like that. I haven't talked to her in 4 years. It was just a one-time date. It was the weirdest thing because we weren't sure if we should be hanging out, because this was May 2020 and during COVID. And then watching Death Wish was not great. It's not that great of a movie.
No. That's awesome, dude. Well, way to go. I love the fact that we've been around the same girl riding. For all I know, nothing happened with me either. I can't remember. But I'll give it some thought. And if I figure it out, I'm going to send you a name and a picture. Because if I figure out who it is, I'll get a Facebook shot. And between us, we need to figure out who this girl is, and I'll tell you exactly what happened.
Now, what do you think about the Radio Hall of Fame? Does that mean anything to you?
Oh, it means a lot. I would have to say, I talk to some people that don't care, but if you ever got in the Radio Hall of Fame, that would be huge. There wouldn't be a greater honor. And I kind of look at the 30 years, that I've amassed together and what I've done, whether it's crash landing in a hot air balloon. We almost got killed and hit a barn doing 60 miles an hour because it was so windy, or sitting every seat in the Omni before they tore it down, or being in Centennial Park, which I did a podcast on, just 400 feet away from the stage when the bomb went off. And I thought it was bad pyrotechnics, and then everybody's running. And I stayed on air for 3 hours on 96 Rock, calling into our overnight person, kind of giving play-by-play what was happening.
Yeah.
And, and then reopening the park, I had Emmanuel Lewis with me, Webster. He and I are very good friends, still are. And he's walking in with me. And then Jesse, who had run for president, Jesse Jackson, is walking through, and he's got 3 deep cameras on him as he's giving a blessing as they reopen Centennial Park during the Olympic Games. And here I am with my 96 Rock mic flag and Emmanuel Lewis, and he's like, Manuel, and he picked him up. He picked him up like a baby. I would never pick up my friend. And Emmanuel takes the microphone from me because he's smart and he's an actor. And the entire time, everybody's taking pictures. Emmanuel Lewis is holding the mic flag. I came back to the radio station. I was a damn hero for pulling that off. And then the supposed bomber has a 96 Rock plate on or sticker on his truck. And we befriend him, and then we do a billboard with flames in the background, and then we get sued like he sued everybody else because he was innocent. So I look back at these moments and what I've done and some of the craziness and the things I've been a part of, and even what I'm doing now in independent radio. Yeah, you would love to believe that could happen, but one bad thing happened locally, and I didn't ruin it. I just didn't know better. I was nominated for the Georgia Music Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And I go, and all I did was talk about it on the radio. I brought up my in-laws and my parents and me, and I go down, and, we go and have dinner, and we were there in the ceremony, and nobody's called me yet, but I'm noticing people in smaller markets, like in Georgia, just like Florida, you have smaller cities, and people are winning the Hall of Fame in these small cities that have been in radio 10, 15 years. And then I'm hearing people get it that are dead, deceased, and their wife's coming up accepting it. Or in one case, the husband, because his wife was on air. And I'm like, well, she worked at Quick C, which we all know became WKRP in Cincinnati. I'm like, that's legit. And then the last person to present was Willard, our midday guy on 96 Rock that trained me to be on the board that was on the station in the 70s and 80s. And obviously when the regular guys came and all that, he was old school and they let him go. But I said, all right, this is who's going to present for me. And they didn't call me, and I didn't get called up. And I was like, oh my God. So when it was over, I did a picture where I'm like acting like I'm crying. My family's holding me. And I found out that the reason I wasn't picked is because it's a money-making thing. They want you to get people to vote for you. And in order to vote, you have to spend $25. So whoever gets the most votes and most money put into the Georgia Music Hall of Fame gets nominated and wins. Had I known that, I would have talked about it and had people, pay to vote for me. I just didn't know that's what I was supposed to do. I thought it was based on merit. And then a lot of personalities were pissed off in town at different stations and talked about it. And I don't know if I've hurt my chances, but that was 6 years ago. I haven't been nominated since. But to be nominated for the real, National Radio Hall of Fame would be incredible. I think anybody should be blown away if they even got nominated.
Now, before I let you go, how can people hear your current morning show?
Well, the cool thing I'm doing now is because we talked about the pandemic, I'm sitting in a studio that was built for me by the radio station because I was one of the top personalities, so they wanted to make sure everything was done right. And now I use it to broadcast only if I have to, or cut all my production and my commercials. I was cutting several commercials before I got on with you down here now. So I'm blessed to have this professional equipment. But, when I look at what I'm doing, it's the pandemic, it's the wokeness, it's knowing one person can decide the fate to flip a radio station. I've been on 2 stations that got flipped for alternative music. And one was Project 961 when they flipped 96 Rock, a 33-year-old heritage station. It's about as big a tragedy here as I would say for the Loop in Chicago.
Yeah.
Then you look at what went down in the pandemic as far as people just getting away from people, and a lot of bad things were said about people because people were worried about losing their job, and a lot of untruths. And you and I know the individual that was doing that. I don't even need to say his name. I don't want to give him enough credit, but it starts with a B. And he since showed his true colors in several other markets. He's just not a good person. But I got tired of the corporate scene. And when I got let go over a flip back to 99X instead of Rock 100.5, because the guy that flipped us is now in charge of content for Cumulus, and he was the program director for 99X, our biggest competitor during the 96 Rock regular guys, and we blistered that morning show. We talked about them, how bad they were, how weird they looked, whatever, and it turns out the girl that we blistered is his best friend, and he got her job at CMT, and when he got content approval, I had a target on my back, and the best way to get rid of me is flip the station to 99X back to alternative station that was my competitor. I don't fit the bill. I can't be on air. So I took a step back and went, all right, I got offers to work at 2 different stations. I've got a really great agent out of Seattle that I love dearly, and he's an awesome agent, Paul Anderson.
Yeah.
And Paul and I are looking at it, and we start looking at the stations, and they all want me to sign these 1 year, and I was out of work for 6 months because, the station got flipped, and they still had a non-compete. And then I had to take all those tests that you know about to prove whether you're a good person, that you're not a racist, that you're not a molester. And you have to take these quarterly tests, listen to 20 videos to take a 100-question test to prove that you're a good person. So my boss, Chris Murray, who had been the general manager at Rock 100.5 in Atlanta for 6 years, owns radio stations. He started buying up more, and he started Fox FM. He also has The Bear, which is his country station. He has a few urbans, and he has a couple of religious stations. He now owns 49 radio stations in Atlanta, and I'm on 10 of them, and I'm syndicated for him on mornings, and you can go to the app and listen to me anywhere in the nation. Just go on your Bluetooth, whether you're on an Android or an Apple, and download my-Fox-FM. So it's my Fox FM. You'll see 3 numbers or stations. I'm on 102.1 in Atlanta, 97.3 in LaGrange and Noonan, and I think 104 in Barnesville. And now he's buying up other stations. He's looking to get 90% coverage in Georgia. But now that I'm in independent radio doing mornings, and it's called the Southside Ride. So go to thesouthsideride.com. It's just like the side of town, like I'm Southside Steve, thesouthsideride.com. And you can check out our site, hear the bits that we're doing. It's all right there. You can listen for free. And you can follow me on my socials, on Instagram at Steve Rickman, or on Facebook at Southside Steve Rickman. And I'm on every platform. And I have to do the social media like anybody else. But independent radio, for me, Ryan, is the way right now because it's not payola. You can talk about things you're doing. I can talk about my bourbon, which is Come On Bourbon Whiskey. I can talk about whatever I want, and I don't get in trouble. And all I have to do is obey the FCC rules. That's it. There are no woke corporate rules. I do a segment called Politicktainment because at the end of the day, most politicians are dicks. And we call it like we see it. We're all about America.
I love that.
Doesn't matter whether I'm a Republican or my partner's an independent. You show me a good Democrat that's going to change the way this country is and protect my 4-year-old, my 7-year-old, I might just vote that way. So we really call it like we see it. We call bullshit where that exists as well. And I could never do that on corporate radio. And the freedom is unbelievable. There are no benefits. There's no insurance. There's no 401ks. And, the salary is lower. And it's probably a third of what it was. And the hustle's on. And, it's the same thing. You get paid off of gigs. And you can work side projects and use the radio to help with those. And that's exactly what I'm doing. So I'm probably having the best time ever in year 31 in Atlanta on my Fox FM.
Can you believe we've been talking for 49 minutes?
No, dude, talking to you is easy. A lot of people I know listen to you. I met you, and I thought you were extremely nice. I loved your energy.
Thank you.
When I met you at Morning Boot Camp, I think I met you in Chicago, and then it was done in Atlanta as well.
Yes.
And I never went to boot camp. I went in '95 when it was in Atlanta with the Christopher Root and the Wake Up Crew show, which basically launched my career. And then I never went again until I worked with the one guy that,
Yeah.
that and he was all into it. So then I started going, for 3 years. And then even the last year I said, dude, I don't need to do it. I'm not trying to network. I don't want to leave Atlanta. I just don't. I want to live here. It would take an incredible offer and an opportunity for me to throw white sheets on my furniture and leave. I'm not saying I wouldn't. If the right deal came across, I would. But I knew that I wasn't hunting that. I was loyal to the city I grew up in. And this is where all my family is, my wife's family. So I didn't do it for networking, and I wasn't in the clique to be a presenter. So for me, I just went just to socialize. But meeting you was one of the cool things for me. And I just want your listeners to know you always have that smile on your face. You're eager. You're like a sponge. You're always learning. You're confident. You're a good broadcaster. Whatever issues you had early on, you've erased those.
I appreciate that.
And I could work with you in an effing heartbeat. You're a good person, and you built this show, and it was a pleasure to be on. There's a lot of shows I probably wouldn't do, but when you asked me, I said, hell yeah, anything for Ryan and Hope.
I'm recording this at my friend's house in Tampa, so I'm not even at my normal studio. And also, my last name's Hoppe, but...
Hoppe, you know what? I didn't know that. I thought it was Hope, and I bet you I've called you Hope 19 times. And
no, you've actually not said it. I would have. I prefer that over. People think it's like Hoppe. It's very weird because it doesn't look like it would be Hoppe. It's the weirdest last name because whenever people write things about me online, it's always Hoppy. People don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, I see the E, so I just thought it was Hope with two P's. Just to be different, but Hoppe, Hoppe. All right, I won't make that mistake.
No,
Please
you're good.
Tell me I got it right.
No, you're good. Dude, this has been so much fun, man. I've been a fan for, I don't know, years. Maybe 2009, 2008 type. So it's been a lot of fun having you on the show.
Well, dude, it was my pleasure. And at the end of the day, we've all had some incredible moments in the limelight, but I don't think I'm any, cooler or better than anybody. My mind just isn't like that. My confidence goes to the limit where I can get on a stage and speak to the biggest crowd or the smallest crowd. That's where it stops. But I think some people in our business and a lot of businesses think of themselves a little too highly, and it's just not my nature. I can see creativity in people, and I don't mind sharing spotlights. And I just want to make people laugh. All I care about is making someone feel good every day about themselves, whether it's pointing out, even the ugliest person in the world has one sexy thing about them. And that's what I'll find. And life's too short. We're all doctor's visit away from horrible news. And I do believe in living every day like it's your last, but I also believe in always trying to be a better person than you were yesterday. The world needs good people. There's too many bad people in it. And you can't give up or throw your hands in the air. All I will tell you, based on your career and mine, attach yourself to rocket ships, and that's for anybody listening. Don't waste your time on people that aren't worth it, and don't be tight friends with anybody you think might say something bad about you in a room if you aren't present. They're not worth your time.
Yeah, come on.
And that is 100% a yeah, come on. And check out my podcast. It is the Yeah, Come On Show. And it's about life, liberty, and the pursuit of show business like you. I want to talk to people that have made it, and I want to talk to people that are trying to make it. Anybody that doesn't want to be in the corporate grind or just be a social security number or a number, anybody that takes a second mortgage or spends late nights on an invention or an idea or a concept, and they're just trying to do what they love for a living, that's what my podcast is all about. Throwing spaghetti at the wall. Does it stick or does it leave a stain on your life? That's it.
Thank you, bro. This has been a lot of fun.
Hey, Ryan, Hoppe?
Yes.
My pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day, bro.
Thank you. Here and be safe.
All right. Goodbye, Steve.
Bye-bye, Ryan.
And that was Southside Steve as he was on Hoppe Hour. Now, if this is your first time listening to my show, hi, my name's Ryan Hoppe, and I'm the host of this award-winning radio show. I have two versions. I have one where I do interviews and one where I talk about celebrity news. To hear more of my show, search up HOPPE Radio on all major podcasting platforms. This has been Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, signing off. Goodbye.
Happy Hour. Happy Hour.
RyanHoppeRadio.com.
Like that. And like that. He's gone.
Whenever we're going outside, all I smell is poop.
The hour is now over. The hour is now over. Hoppe hour is now over.
Happy hour is now over.